March 15th of 2011, my oldest son, Joshua Lewis Lipstein, he was a petty officer, second class in the Navy, serving as a Riverine. He died by suicide. He took his own life on, as I said, March 15th of 2011. Oldest of three, best friends to my surviving children. He was best friend. His mother died a month prior to his death, my ex-wife. And I'm sure that was the straw that broke the camel's back for him. He had a lot of stress going on. He was married and had a 6-month-old daughter. His wife and daughter were living in Texas. He was waiting for a medical discharge from the Navy. And with my ex-wife's death, I think it just kind of threw him over the edge. He served our country proudly. He struggled in high school with grades, but he was very into the JROTC at Mount Pleasant High School in Delaware. And he wanted to serve, and that's all he really wanted to do. So he put a lot of energy into the JROTC program, but very little into his other classes. After he graduated in 2005, in October, he joined the Navy, and his life turned around. I mean, I thought he was going to be a couch potato for the rest of his life, and he actually became very passionate about his career. He quickly was moving up the ranks. He became petty officer 3rd class. I think it was within a year. And then he went he did 2 tours in Iraq. His thoughts were that he would serve for 20 years and then go and retire from the Navy and maybe get into the FBI or CIA or NSA or something like that. He had plans for the future, which I hadn't heard up until he got into the Navy. So he truly had a passion for it. He served his 2nd tour in 2009. He came back and he started complaining about hearing loss in his right ear. So they started doing some tests, and they found a tumor in his brain, which was blocking his hearing canal. And it was right around the time that he was going to have to re-enlist. The Navy said, listen, we found this on our watch. We'll take it out, and then we'll medically discharge you after you've recovered from it. And I thought, well, that's pretty good of them, because he wanted to re-enlist, but he wouldn't be able to carry a weapon without being able to hear. So it was a challenge for him to make that decision, but he decided to go ahead and get the surgery done with the Navy. It was successful. It was done in December of 2009. And at some point between then and May of 2010, he definitely had an addiction problem to painkillers. And so that, and it just kind of started to spiral out of control. His mom, so when she died, not only did he lose his mother, his confidant, but his supply line to illegal prescription drugs. So he turned to heroin, and my daughter-in-law was on the phone with him on March 15th, and when they hung up, she called me and she said, Dad, I'm really scared. I just got off the phone with Josh, and he's threatening to kill himself, and I don't know what to do. So I asked her if she could contact anyone she knew in Virginia Beach. He was in Virginia Beach waiting for his medical discharge. She was in Texas, and I was in Delaware. So when we hung up, I called him, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get an answer or what, and I was thankful when he did answer the phone. However, as soon as I heard his voice, I knew that her concerns were for real. He was crying to me, and all he could say was, "Dad, I love you, and I'm so sorry." And I could feel the pain just coming through the phone. I just knew he was in a lot of pain, mental anguish. I was able to keep him on the phone for about 15 minutes, and then after about that period of time, his voice got really strong, and he said, "Dad, I gotta go," and he hung the phone up. I called 911, and then I called him back, and I didn't get an answer, but about an hour later I got a call from one of his best friends, and they told me that they didn't get there in time, that he completed the suicide. That started my journey of grief, and I knew that I had to get to my other two children. I knew that news travels fast these days, and I needed to be with them when they found out. That's all I could think about, was protecting them. I mean, they just lost their mother, and now their oldest brother and best friend to suicide. My casualty assistance officer, the person that they give the Navy or the military service gives to the family, had left a pamphlet, a folder full of brochures and pamphlets for me to read. And he said, "Listen, don't worry about this. Just when you have time and you want to, just look at some of the brochures. Maybe something in there can be of assistance to you." Well, I kind of was flipping through them, and nothing was really resonating. And then I picked up this one, and it had on the top TAPS, TAPS, and it on the back. I turned it over, and it said, "Remember the love, celebrate the life, and share the journey." And that just resonated with me, because just a few days before I picked that up, I had said to Joshua's friends that were around, my children and their friends, I said, "We have to figure out a way to turn this tragedy into something positive." I said, "Joshua would want us to. He lived a good life. Let's not focus on how he died, but how he lived, and let's try to make something positive out of this tragedy." And there was a suicide seminar that TAPS was putting on in October that I was invited to go to, and my son said that he'd like to go with me. And it was in Colorado Springs, and there was over 300 other survivors of suicide at that seminar. And I feel like that's when my life just started to turn around. Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. We're a national nonprofit. We receive no funding from the government. And what we do is we reach out to families of fallen military heroes, that anyone that's died that served our country, and for any cause or any reason of death, and any relationship to it. They didn't, spouse, children, parents, siblings, even girlfriends or fiancés, battle buddies. We will support any of them. I had asked them how I could get involved. I wanted to get involved, and they gave me many options. But I went to a seminar and met up with one of my bosses, and we were having dinner, and she asked me what I was doing, and at that time I wasn't working. So we connected. She asked if I would speak at the DoD VA conference in Washington, D.C. for their suicide prevention. She wanted me to sit on a panel. and just tell my story. I had 10 minutes to tell it. And it was shortly after that I was offered a position as peer mentor coordinator for suicide survivors, but that job has changed to be peer mentor coordinator, and I do focus on matching our trained volunteers with newly grieved survivors, and I train them as well. So I do the training, and then I match them with other survivors. And I gotta say that I feel very honored to have the opportunity to do something that rewarding. I mean, and when I think about turning tragedy into something positive, I can look back and say, okay, well, that's what's happening here.